Happy holidays. Want to give your host a gift? Consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing the show this holiday season. It really helps the show grow. From all of us at Believe, have a Merry Christmas, everyone, and a happy holiday.
Hello, and welcome to Around the Political World with John Ruffman. I am your host, John Ruffman. If you're a fan of the show, make sure to hit the follow button on the top right of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening at this very moment. When you hit follow, leave a review or share an episode with a friend. It helps other people discover the show, keeps us going. As I like to point out each and every day, it expands our base. There are so many stories in the news that are vital and important. But on this Friday, I want to speak about just a few. First, the United States Senate last night rejected both the Democratic and the Republican plans for ACA tax credits. What that means in a practical sense is that the cost for medical care under Obamacare is going to skyrocket after the first of the year. It's very simple. What the Senate had to do was to pass a bill that would have allowed for the subsidies for the Affordable Care Act to continue. Without those subsidies, everything skyrockets. Now, look, I want to remind you of something. I think it's very important. Democrats voted this in, and Republicans have continually opposed ACA, Obamacare. And what the Republicans have said is very simple. They have a replacement for Obamacare that will be better. Really? Where is it? The Republicans cannot even agree among themselves as to what to do. But this we do know. The polls are indicating that the American people are blaming, and I want you to listen very carefully to this, are blaming the Republicans if the cost of ACA, Obamacare, goes up. That means that the Republicans are under the gun. They have to come up with a solution. And it is clear that the Republicans are obstructing as much as they can. The dueling Senate votes that occurred yesterday are the latest in an act of political theater. But who is going to suffer? The American people who are under ACA. Millions of Americans. And make no mistake, this is a big problem. Now, I want to express to you my hope that a compromise can be found. It would be interesting, and we heard President Trump just this morning saying that he is going to kind of come up with some solution that will extend ACA but kill Obamacare. Doesn't work that way, Mr. President, and you'll find that out. And Republicans in the Senate are really feeling it. Remember, please, that the voters most affected if ACA stops are Republican voters. That's right, states of this union in which ACA is critical. Now, I want to take it a step further because I think it is important to understand that what America needs is a healthcare system that works. Years ago, I suggested, rather than a new system, let's take Medicare. Let's extend Medicare down decade by decade until all Americans are covered. There are others who suggested this as well, but it has not come to fruition. And so Obamacare is the only key that we have as a proposal. I want you to know that Republicans have tried unsuccessfully to get repeal ever since Obamacare passed. I remember when there were at least 60 attempts in a single session of Congress. Each one failed. So now the question is, what happens? A group of senators, Democrats and Republicans, who understand this issue, are trying to get together to try to come up with a solution. I have news for you. There cannot be a solution unless Democrats and Republicans agree to work together. So we now wait to see what will happen. It's very simple. We need health care for all Americans. And I will suggest to you that the answer would be to extend Medicare. But we know the Republicans aren't going to do that. And we know that it is not a practical solution at this moment. So We have until January 1st in order to make clear that the costs will not go up. We'll have to wait and see what happens. Now, something else happened yesterday, which I think is a reflection of the president's declining popularity. Let's talk about what happened in Indiana. Now, I have some familiarity with Indiana. My wife's family's from Indiana. I've spent a lot of time in Indiana. And I can tell you the Republicans standing up and saying no to Donald Trump is remarkable. And it was Republicans who defeated the effort to redistrict in Indiana. Now, there are a number of polls that are out by a number of different networks. And what we have discovered is that even if the redistricting passed in various places, essentially, it'll be a wash. Republicans and Democrats have not been able to score any points in terms of this effort on redistricting. It means that in the end, the Republican attempt, led by Donald Trump, to forge a path to assuring control of the House of Representatives by the Republicans seems to have failed. This is an important element in the political battle which is going on right now. But look, it's very clear. The president says the economy is in great shape. We have the Senate rejecting ACA. We have costs going up. The president may say that this is an A plus economy, but it isn't. And therefore, the feeling is that the Republicans will pay the price when the election takes place in November. So we'll have to wait and see. But two things to watch very carefully. One, the ACA, whether or not there will be a bill passed to extend Obamacare. And secondly, the question which is dominating at the moment, and that, of course, is the question of the future of Donald Trump's redistricting push. And yet, there is more in the news. We know that a tanker was seized off the coast of Venezuela. And we know that Donald Trump is now suggesting that he intends to seize other tankers. And we understand directly that there are real challenges now to the president's authority. This involves the Congress of the United States, which must step up. Let me point out that Kristi Noem, the Secretary of Homeland Security, linked the seizure of the oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela to other actions which may be taken in order to seize other tankers. And of course, the real goal is to destroy Nicolas Maduro, who is, or isn't, but is in power as president of Venezuela. Will there be a real debate by the House Homeland Security Committee? Will there be a real discussion of what is going on? And does the president have the authority to act unilaterally? Let me point out that the Coast Guard was the vehicle for this seizure. It wasn't American military, although Marines were there to protect the Coast Guard people. What Kristi Noem said is, this was a successful operation directed by the president to ensure that they're pushing back on a regime that is systematically covering and flooding our country with deadly drugs and killing next generation of Americans. Let me explain something to you. What happened with the seizure of this tanker has little to do with the proliferation of drugs in this country. You and I know that, don't we? And the myth that seizing this tanker is going to send a message or stop drugs in this country, no way. This is a real question. And there is another issue which needs to be addressed, and that is ICE, which is continuing its roundup of people, again on the pretext of removing citizens. Did you watch, and I say citizens, I mean citizens, that's right. Did you watch yesterday as Kristi Noem was put on the defensive? Because it turned out that many of the people who were being rounded up by ICE and expelled are, in fact, either citizens of the United States or people who are here legally. This is absolutely contrary to American law. And the question now is whether or not the administration will be held responsible. This is another critical question. But I want to raise yet another issue that I think bears discussion. And that has to do with artificial intelligence. You may have seen that Time Magazine's Person of the Year is AI. And one of the things that I have learned about AI is it's pervasive and it cannot be stopped. But we need to understand, and we're seeing more and more of this. Teaching at the university, I had the experience of realizing that people were using AI, or computers, if you will, to do work that they should be doing themselves. The only way I could get around it was to collect their notes on the classes and have them give oral presentations so that I could really see that they understood the work and knew the work. What concerns me now is that AI is so pervasive that when Time Magazine suggests that this is the most important single development, and they are probably right, we may lose control of how AI is used. Yeah, I must tell you bluntly, I know writers who now take what they have written and put it through AI to improve the quality of the writing. This concerns me greatly because we need to develop a generation that thinks for itself. And artificial intelligence may be useful in certain areas. But if I were teaching today to university students, one of the questions that I would raise to them is, how reliant are they on AI? And if you're talking about artificial intelligence, writing papers, and frankly, rewriting material, and then presenting it as if an individual wrote it, well, I got to tell you, that worries me greatly. So the president is now opposed to any AI controls state by state. He wants it national. But we still don't know what he's talking about in terms of national controls. I point this out because this is a serious challenge to the future of all of us. Somebody said to me, John, you won't have to do your podcast. You won't have to do interviews because your voice will now be replicated by AI and you can be made to say anything that the person directing it wants you to say. Well, let me tell you something, that scares the living bejeebers out of me. And it should scare the living bejeebers out of you as well. I point this out because on conservative media, there were some who said, what, AI? No, it should be Charlie Kirk. Remember, Charlie Kirk was assassinated, and a terrible tragedy. But should Charlie Kirk and his movement have been the choice of Time Magazine for Person of the Year? And the answer is, of course not. But understand, all of this has become so partisan that no matter where you look, whether it's Time Magazine's Person of the Year, renewal of ACA, the question of ICE and its role, the issues involving, the future of our country, Republicans are finally standing up, whether it is in the House of Representatives over the Epstein files. And let's be clear, next week, we should see those files. There is a question about whether the Justice Department has tampered with the Epstein files. All of that is going to come out. All of that is going to be discussed. All of that will be on the table. So as you can see, we have a lot that we are going to be talking about. I'm going to watch carefully to see whether or not a solution can be found on Obamacare ACA. Donald Trump says he's going to try. Let's see. What will the Republicans do? And are the Republicans now ready to resist Donald Trump, as Republicans in Indiana stood up and said no to his redistricting plan? And what does it mean for the upcoming elections for the House of Representatives and the United States Senate, scheduled and will take place in November? Somebody asked me, by the way, could Trump cancel elections? The answer is no. No way. Remember that even in 1942, when America was at war, the midterm elections were held. And there was talk then of canceling them because of the war. But We're not in a war right now, ladies and gentlemen. And even if we were, the process of American democracy has to be preserved. So think about all of this as we come into the weekend. I know I will be watching and listening carefully because these are major issues, all of which have an impact on what our future will be. This is John Rothman. By the way, I want to make clear, this is not AI. This is really me right here with you. And I say this because I want you all to be aware that with all the strengths of the technology we have, there are real dangers lurking, and we'd better be alert to them. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Around the Political World with John Rothman. I'd love to hear your thoughts on today's episode. You can write a review on Apple Podcasts, drop a comment on YouTube or Spotify, and click any of the links to the show notes to connect with me on social media. Remember to share this episode with a friend or colleague. Remember, this show has been getting so much positive attention that we now have advertising support. This, of course, will help us create more opportunities for Around the Political World with John Rothman. And I'm happy about that. Our listenership is growing, and so many of you call me or email me or comment to me about what you think. By the way, some people like it, other people don't. But you know what? At least we're listening and we're talking. And my special appreciation to Gogo Zoger, the wonderful producer of this program, who makes sure we're up and running each and every day. So Gogo, thank you. Have a great weekend. And to all of you, have a great weekend as well. I will be back on Monday with more of Around the Political World with John Rothman. And believe me, I can't wait. See you then.
Happy holidays. Want to give your host a gift? Consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing the show this holiday season. It really helps the show grow. From all of us at Believe, have a Merry Christmas, everyone, and a happy holiday. If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.